everybody, thank you so much for clicking on my video to watch. So for today's video, I am going to be showing you guys my current foundation routine. I'm going to go through my full face of all the products that I normally use. Foundation, I can't stay away from. Same with the concealers, but the rest of the face products, I usually switch up. Recently, these are the ones that I've been going to non-stop every single day. This has just been my favorite routine, and I've been loving how my skin has been looking. Before we get on to the video, please don't forget to subscribe. Click that little bell beside the subscribe button. That way you guys get notified every time I upload a new video. Also, be sure to like this video if you like routines and you want to see more from me. And if you'd like to know my current foundation routine and all of the products that I use, then please just keep watching. Okay, so don't mind my hair. I have frizzy hair and I tried to slick it back. It's not working because I don't have the right product for it. So you're gonna see these. Anyways, we'll just leave that at that. First, I want to prime. So my favorite primer right now is this one by Catrice. This is the Prime and Fine Smoothing Refiner. So I use this in my full face using Catrice makeup, and I fell in love with it ever since. It completely smooths out your skin and your fine lines, and I have a little bit of fine lines on my forehead. So I always like to go in with this first. Sometimes I forget about it, I don't know why, but just because it's in this little jar, so it kind of gets lost in my drawer sometimes. But that's the only reason I don't use it sometimes. It's just because I don't see it. And then I always remember after I put my foundation on that, oh my gosh, I forgot to put this primer on. It's amazing. I hate skipping this step, especially just because my forehead, it needs it. And then I have some pores here, and it just completely smooths it out. So I always like to start with a smooth base. My skin actually hasn't been so dry lately. I do have very dry skin, and recently it's more dry to normal. So I have been able to use primers like this one and ones more towards oily skin, normal to oily skin, because my skin hasn't been so dry lately, which is actually really, really nice. I like having my skin not flaking off of my face 24/7. This is going to be the star of the show, my foundation that has been making my skin look amazing. It completely smooths out my skin. It still sort of looks like my skin. It doesn't look like I have a whole bunch of foundation on. It doesn't look cakey whatsoever. My friends and family always compliment my skin when I'm wearing this foundation, and I've just been loving it. So it is the Catrice HD Liquid Coverage Foundation. I mixed two shades. I mixed the shades Light Beige and Rose Beige. This has been my go-to. I really try and switch it up for you guys. I don't know if I have been switching it up that much on my channel. I try to use different foundations, but off camera, this is the only one I'm using. I put on more of Rose Beige because it's a little bit on the deeper side, but it's also more on the pink side, so I mix the two just so it matches better. I put way more on than you actually need to. I just like to do it this way. I've been really into a full matte and full coverage finish lately, and this foundation is also matte. And the brush I have been using with it is the Sigma Flat Kabuki F80 brush. So it is a flat, semi-dense brush, and it just blends out your foundation beautifully, but it also gives you the most out of your foundation. So you are gonna get the fullest coverage you can get with your foundation while you're using this brush. A beauty blender or a sponge can take away some of the product, so when I'm using this brush, it doesn't take away any of it. Basically, maybe a little bit, but not much at all. And you can use less of your foundation if you're going to use this brush, just because it really spreads it out nicely. And I also like to get it on my ears and then down my neck, because then everything is just going to be blended together evenly, and there's going to be no harsh lines cut off from my face to my neck or my ears. Especially when I'm wearing my hair up, I like to make sure I get my ears too. I blend it as much as I can into the hairline without getting foundation all over my hair. But I also don't really want it to cut off at the hairline either. That's just gonna kind of help make your foundation look more like your skin, just as long as everything is blended so the color is evenly distributed. Also, while using this brush, it doesn't leave any streaks or lines on your face, and usually when I use the brush, that will happen, so I'll have to blend it out my foundation again with a sponge. But this one doesn't do that, so I completely can just use this brush on its own. So I have been really into the full coverage matte finish lately, so I've been using pretty full coverage concealers as well. I use a little bit of my Born This Way multi-use sculpting concealer. This one is in the shade Vanilla. It's really on the yellow side, so that's why I mix it. But then again, I really like this combination with these two concealers anyways. And the other one is the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind, and I have the shade Ivory here. I like a really light concealer so I can really highlight underneath my eyes in the middle of my face, and it just creates a little bit extra dimension with my face without leaving it all the same color. I take this one and I use this one on the inner corners of my eyes because that's where I have the most discoloration, and I really want to cover those up and not exactly highlight those areas. And then I drag this one onto my eyelids just because my eyelids are pretty transparent and veiny, so this one will cover it up really good. And now I take my Maybelline one and I just place it onto the rest of my face. So I place a bunch underneath my eyes. Again, you don't need this much, but I really like my under eyes to be super highlighted and bright. And then I put some on my chin, bridge of my nose, and a little bit on my forehead like that. Just to keep up the full coverage effect, I go back in with my same brush and I blend it out. I just kind of use a patting motion when I'm blending out my concealer. That way it just pushes right into my skin and stays within the spot that I placed it instead of spreading it out all over my face. If I was to do a circular motion, it would obviously get into places that I don't want it. So that's why I just pat it in to where I just popped on the concealer. Try and grab some of the Too Faced concealer too on the inner corners and drag it through just so the shades don't cut off and they kind of blend together just a little bit. And then that is it for my liquids. The next thing I do is I go in with my powder. Since I use a lot of concealer, it creases up really fast, so by the time I open up my powder, I usually have to go back into and blend out my concealer just because if I set my creases then they will stay creased. So I always make sure to blend out my concealer before I go ahead and pop the powder on. So I actually washed all my brushes, but I forgot to wash my sponges. Sorry, this one's so dirty, but this is the Real Techniques diamond sponge and this is what I use to pop on my powder. And the powder that I use is the Catrice Nude Illusion Loose Powder. This one is in transparent matte. It is, oh my gosh, such an amazing powder. It completely smooths out your skin. That's why I go to this one so often. Sometimes I switch it up, but this one is just my favorite for underneath my eyes. And this powder also just melts into your skin. If you used a really, really light hand, you could bake with this and let it sit on top of your skin, but I think this works better melted into your skin anyways. So I kind of just let the powder do its thing. So I do have to go ahead and blend this back out because I creased up majorly. If you just use a little bit of concealer, you're not gonna crease like I am. And then I really quickly pick up some of the powder onto my sponge and I just press it in to my skin and it completely just smooths it out. I don't know if you can see that. When I first used it, I was so shocked that it was doing that. I almost didn't believe it. And the first time was when I did my first impressions using the Catrice products. And I kind of thought that it was because my sponge was a little damp, so it was helping it smooth out my skin. But it doesn't matter if your sponge is damp or not, this powder will just completely smooth out your skin, and it's amazing. And it kind of just blends the color in together because as you can see with just the concealer, you can kind of see the color that it leaves. You can definitely see where my concealer is versus my foundation. And when I put on the powder, it just makes everything look seamless and blends together really nicely. So this powder is a must-have step in my routine. So just go ahead and blend out the other eye and then just do the exact same thing. And then obviously I did go ahead and place some on my chin. And once I get to my forehead, I'll show you what I do then. But also while I'm doing my under eyes, I like to get my smile lines. Okay, so now that is all pressed into my skin. Now I'm going to move on to my forehead. So what I do with my forehead, it's going to be a little bit tricky because I don't have a table in front of me. I'm going to try and use the viewfinder for it. But since I have fine lines, and when I do remember to use this primer, it helps out so much. But if I do put concealer on, it will still kind of sink into my fine lines. If I don't put concealer there, it'll be fine, but I like to even out where I put my concealer. That's why I like to put it on my forehead as well. I just smooth out the creases that I left on my forehead. You probably can't really see my fine lines and creases in the camera, but they're there, believe me. So I blend it with my brush. This is gonna look pretty silly. And then I pull back my forehead and then I press in the powder. Because if I left my forehead how it is and not pulled it back, then I would just be basically setting my fine lines and leaving it there. If I pull it back, then it completely tightens my skin and then I can put the powder on and it's fine. I know it's such a ridiculous thing that I do, but since I'm showing you my actual routine, I thought I should leave everything that I do to actually show you guys everything that I do. So that is the completed powder step. I am a little bit extra and I use a different powder later on, but that's just to clean up my contour. I'll explain it when I get to that step. Next I move on to my bronzer, and like I said, I've been really into the matte look lately, so I use a matte bronzer. I use the Benefit Hoola bronzer basically every single day. Sometimes I switch it up, but mostly this is my go-to right now. It is such an OG bronzer, but it's such an amazing bronzer. That's why I still use it to this day. One of my favorite bronzers of all time. And the brush I've been using it with is the Too Faced Mr. Right brush. I switch out my bronzer brushes all the time. I have quite a bit of few favorite bronzer brushes, this being one of them. So I'm going to use this one today. It's pretty big and fluffy and it has a little bit of a tip in the center of it. So it gets onto your cheeks and also into the hollows of your cheeks very well. So I just pick some up on my brush and I just place it on my cheeks, forehead, and then also down my neck. Always make sure to get my bronzer down my neck too, because it also helps even out the color. And I use a lot of bronzer, so I probably do like 2 or 3 layers depending on my mood. Now I move on to my contour. So I've been doing my bronzer first and then my contour after, just because I feel like I can be a little bit more precise that way. For contour, not much has changed at all. I am still in love with my Anastasia contour kit. This one is in the shade light to medium and I take the shade Java on most occasions. Sometimes I mix Java and Havana if I'm using a deeper bronzer or if I'm a little bit more tan. But day to day I just use the shade Java. If I want more of a soft and blended out contour, then I'll take my Sigma large angled contour brush. This one is the F40, but usually I'm still using my NARS Eda brush and that's what I'll go to. So that's what I'm going to use today, just because it is super precise and it just gives you a nice sculpted look. So I just pick up the shade with the brush and then I blow the excess off. I also just wash this brush so it's a little bit fluffier than usual. I just take it right into the hollows of my cheeks and using circular motions also blend it upwards. And this is looking crazy on camera for some reason. I also just make sure to blend it right into the hairline just so it doesn't look like it's just one straight line. It's just blended through. And I also take some underneath my bottom lip and then on my temples, just a tiny bit on my temples. Sometimes I'll do it right here too, just on my chin here, and just leave it at that. Then I move on to blush. My favorite blush at the moment is the Sigma Core De Rosa blush. So this is it right here. They sell it individually, but this one I'm using is just in their Sculpt Blush Cheek Palette, and I use it with my Luxie 640 Pro Precision Tapered Brush. It's just this very big and flimsy brush, so it doesn't put on too much of the product, which is perfect for blush. I just pick up the blush, and even though I usually don't like a lot of blush, for some reason this color is just so beautiful to me and it really helps make you look super bronzed. So I actually kind of build this color up. I just start on the apples of my cheeks and blend it back to my temples. For some reason, my camera wants to make me look crazy today. My face products really don't look like that right now, but looking in the viewfinder, they look crazy. Next, I take a very large stippling brush. This one is the Stell Spot Essentials bronzing brush, and I just blend out my bronzer and my blush together so they don't look too harsh, even though they're looking like that on camera. And now I go ahead and bake underneath my contour. It's not too messy today, but I'll still do it just to show you guys how I do it. The one I use to clean up my contour is the Huda Beauty Easy Bake Powder. This one is in the shade Pound Cake. I like how thick this one is, so it really just helps clean up underneath the contour. It does look good underneath the eyes if you want to bake with it, and I still use it sometimes for that. But the Catrice one just takes the cake for really smoothing out your under eyes and your face wherever you place the powder. But I just take the same diamond sponge and I just press it right underneath my contour and then drag it down. So I just let it sit like that. Oh, I kind of placed that one a little bit too high, but it'll be fine. Sometimes, just to be extra, I put it on my chin too. I kind of feel like it just flows better that way. I don't know, I'm probably just being crazy. While I wait for this to bake, I don't leave it on too long. I just go ahead and do my highlighter while it's sitting there. I do switch up my brushes sometimes for my highlighter, but usually not. And my favorite one is the Luxie 522 tapered highlighting brush. I switch up my highlighter shades all the time. So the one I'm gonna use today is Champagne Pop by Becca. And I'm just gonna place it on the tops of my cheekbones. And then I kind of connect it here onto my temple. I do the tip of my nose, a little bit on the bridge, and my Cupid's bow. And then I usually do match whatever highlighter I'm using, and I put it on the inner corners of my eyes and my brow bone. Okay, now that I'm glowing, I'm gonna wipe away my baking underneath my contour. And I just wipe it away with my e.l.f. blush brush. I have found this is the perfect brush for wiping away your powder. It's amazing. It just does everything so seamlessly. Such a weird thing to have a favorite brush for wiping away your baking. I don't know, is that weird? Do you guys have one? But yeah, I just use circular motions, wipe it away, and then it just leaves a clean line and also kind of highlights right here too. But I don't like it to be too intense, so I try and wipe away as much as I can. And then since I did my highlighter, I like to take my stippling brush again and blend it through. Okay, the very last step for my face, and I do this before I do my eyes anyways, unless I forget, but I set it with a setting spray. So this one is from Kiss New York, and it is their Pro Touch Makeup Setting Spray. I love this one. I think it's very similar to the Urban Decay De-Slick Setting Spray, and that has been my favorite finishing spray for years and years, ever since I can remember. And this one is a great dupe for it, in my opinion. This one's only $8. It locks down your makeup into place. It makes it stay there, and especially if you're doing a matte look and using matte products, then this one sits on top of them really good, and it doesn't make them look dewy or highlighted like some setting sprays can. So I just spray a bunch on my face and just lock my makeup into place. Okay, so I just finished off my makeup, and that is it for the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see anything else specific from me, then please let me know in the comments. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I had all of those polls asking you guys questions, what you want to see from me in the new year, and kind of specific questions. But if you missed out on those, feel free to leave any suggestions that you want to see from me, brands you want me to use more of. Leave anything in the comments below, and I'll be sure to check those out. Also, don't forget to subscribe before you leave, like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!